Hello, welcome to the Onyx Path news from Onyx Path Publishing. Me, Matthew Dawkins, the Gentleman Gamer. Why are we here today? Well, because I know it's July the 4th, it's Independence Day, it's the kind of thing that Americans, people around the world like to enjoy, but mostly Americans. And what's special about July the 4th this year? Not Independence Day, no. It's special because it's the Onyx Path News. It's hosted by me, and we're going to talk about some new releases. But specifically, we're going to talk about a very exciting Kickstarter that is currently ongoing and some of the plans surrounding it. Now, I know that people are going to be filtering into this live broadcast as it's going on, as they often do. Tardy, you know, people that are late. James Hubbard is never late. He always comes in first. Always closes the door behind him as well, which isn't necessarily what we're after on this particular broadcast. We want people who turn up, leave the door open, hold it open for the next person to come in. And the next person to come in and view us live right now is Paladin Demo, who had to reset, he says, as he comes in through the door, takes his seat. James is still there, sadly, holding the door, waiting for a third person to maybe enter. Paladin Demo is muttering to himself about having a glitch right now, but we will see if someone else comes in for our happy little news meeting. If there is, they'd better speak up now, or James is going to let the door swing in their face. Good God, it's Chronistas das Trevas. That's what we were waiting for. We were waiting for Chronistas from Brazil turning up here today for the Onyx Path News. So, what are we going to talk about today? We are going to talk a little about, firstly, we're going to talk about the Aberrant Kickstarter. And hello, Michelle Masala. The Aberrant Kickstarter that is currently ongoing. It's only been running for around 48 hours as of time of broadcast. It's already hit funding, which is fantastic, and it's already hit a very important stretch goal to myself and Eddie Webb, the funding of a wrestling RPG that is tied into the Trinity Continuum. That is a very important thing for me. Oh, and if you, I noticed someone asking me earlier about these delightful cufflinks that I have on. I feel quite Cthulhian, if that's a word right now. But yeah, I saw someone asking me about that, but it appears they deleted their comment shortly after. Anyway, Aberrant Kickstarter. Yeah, let's actually get to the point. What is Aberrant? We're going to do some videos about Aberrant in the future, but the Aberrant RPG is a superhero role-playing game that involves all kinds of mutations, all kinds of evolutions, all kinds of weird and wonderful powers that aren't necessarily benevolent. And as with all things in the Trinity Continuum, these heroes can exist across many times, many spaces, and not in a linear fashion. And that's something I particularly enjoy. Aberrant is a game that White Wolf initially published, and Onyx Path now own the full rights to, and so it's a very important game for us within the Trinity Continuum, within our entire range of games, and we expected it to be popular, but I don't think we expected it to fund so damn quickly. If you're a big fan of the early series of Heroes, or if you like Orphan Black, TV series like Orphan Black, if you're a fan, hell, of any kind of comic book where oftentimes the heroism gets a bit gritty and there's a bit of pathos and tragedy behind the heroism that's on display, Aberrant is a very good game for you. There's certain shades of X-Men to it because a mutation happens at a point in history that suddenly everyone who is capable of these aberrant powers, they suddenly start manifesting, starting with the fireman, and it goes on from there. So it's a brave new world, but it's also a horrifying one for some of the characters therein. Different consortiums, different organizations spring up that will be fighting each other, of heroes and villains. It's a game I've played a little bit of, but mostly I've just read. And one thing I would really encourage you to do is linked in the video description below, is check out the Kickstarter for Aberrant if you haven't already. Because even if you just go for the PDF, I can tell you, and you can see this from the Kickstarter that's currently running, the art in this book is fantastic. I love, of course, World of Darkness, Chronicles of Darkness art. It's probably the art styles most people are familiar with in terms of Onyx Path. So it's always refreshing to see something so vibrant, so colorful, so comic book-like as the art in Aberrant. Likewise, if you're at all interested in Aberrant, do check out the onyxpath.com, because we've been posting pages from a webcomic that we have been having written for Aberrant, and it's wonderful. It's fantastic. It's up there with anything that's released in comic books today. And yeah, it's a really good introduction to the setting, some of the characters, some of the options, some of the things you might come across within that world. Aberrant is a source book for the Trinity Continuum, which you can still find on Backerkit. And that's something I should point out as well. Trinity Continuum, along with Dystopia Rising, along with Chicago by Night, Dark Eras 2, and a whole bunch of others that are linked in the description below, are still available on Backerkit. So if you did miss the Kickstarters for those games, you can still back them and get the prestige editions of these games. But Aberrant is a particularly strong one. We're seeing that from the number of people that have backed it already. And yeah, we would really love your support. So do check that Kickstarter out. It is linked below. And if you can't look at it right now, do type Aberrant Kickstarter into Google, because it will be the first thing that comes up. Now, as is tradition with these live broadcasts, I'm going to start checking comments. I didn't actually bring my glasses to this little shindig, so I am going to be squinting like an idiot. So let's see. Elvis says, "Good day, gentlemen." Good day, Elvis. The Lady Gamer says, "Hello, who could you be, Lady Gamer?" Paladin Demo says, "Wrestling RPG." That's right, there's a wrestling RPG as an expansion to Aberrant, because the basic level of superheroes in, well, the level of superheroes in Aberrant, you have these things called Novas. You have this very wrestling style, sports entertainment style of character division between who they are and the persona they wear. And that's ultimately a lot of what wrestling is. It's who is this person in the ring and who are they out of the ring. And so taking the elements of Aberrant and putting them in a wrestling context isn't actually that far-flung. We think, Eddie and I think we've got some really good ideas for how we could make this work, even if you're not a wrestling fan. The conceit of superheroes and capes and cowls is very translatable into a wrestling RPG. And Elvis also says, "Hello to the ladies." Paladin Demo says, "Load the spaceship with the rocket fuel." The Lady Gamer says, "Where did you get those from?" I assume you mean my cufflinks. I got them from a very, very lovely person that I know. I often get fantastic gifts from this person. Nick Cutter says, "Hi, mate." Paladin Demo says, "I thought Orphan Black was Deviant the Renegade." Luckily, we can take inspiration from different, or the same series, from multiple games. Chronistas Das Travas says, "What is the difference between New Aberrant and the old version?" The system has been updated. It's using the story path system. We have changed some of the meta plot, made it more accessible. You don't need to have read any of the old material to access the new stuff. And what's more, everything you need is going to be in that core book. It is far sleeker. The artwork, dare I say it, is crisper. Has a more modern style to it, more modern comic book style. But yeah, I think the thing you're going to be looking at most is the system and story path, which is the system we've used for Dystopia Rising. They came from Beneath the Sea. Scion, importantly, is what we're also using for the Trinity Continuum, and it works perfectly. Lennon Dax Luesi says, "Hey-yo." Michelle Masala says, "By none other than Paul Jenkins, I'd add." Yes, you are correct. Paul Jenkins, none other than Paul Jenkins, is the man responsible for our Aberrant comic that is currently on the onyxpath.com. James Hubbard says, "Where are the glasses?" I think I left them in my bedroom, and I'm not getting up to leave because clearly I've got no trousers on. Pattern Spider shouts "Aberrant," which I guess is what you shout when you've just been pushed off a roof by an Aberrant. Or if you're pushing someone off a roof and you are an Aberrant, you're proclaiming your joy at having done so. Chaz Kellner says, "Hi, Matthew." I say, "Hi, Chaz." I'll get your name right eventually. Chronistas das Travers says, "You could use browser zoom." I could, but why would I help myself? I'm a masochist, you see. There's not a sadistic bone in my body. Paladin Demo says, "Had to channel the Ultimate Warrior with the wrestling RPG." I don't think anyone needs to channel the Ultimate Warrior these days. He's a very troubling, well, he's dead, but I suppose channeling him is probably a good thing. But he had some very unpleasant views. Bander1 says, Paul Jenkins is an excellent comic author. Loved his Hellblazer stuff. That's right. If you are unfamiliar, the person who is writing our Aberrant comic is a guy. Paul Jenkins is so synonymous with Hellblazer, Constantine. This is a big deal having him creating our Aberrant comic. So please do check it out. It's not to be sniffed at. This isn't just another game. We have spent an awful lot of time. The wonderful team, not limited to Steve Kenson and Ian Watson, and all of the people that have worked on the Trinity Continuum more widely and Aberrant, have just done such a fantastic job with this game. I think it will blow you away. Lady Game says, is there any news on V5 titles? Well, let's talk about releases then, shall we? So Chicago by Night is in its very final phase of proofing. I am proofing the last chapter of that book, so it won't be long. Obviously, we've still got to send that PDF to Paradox, make sure they're happy with it. There haven't been any major changes, so with a bit of luck and a good wind, they will see that it was the same as it was on the manuscript, minus a few adjustments to some powers and things like that. But that does mean Chicago by Night is on the horizon. Likewise, Chicago Folios is currently being approved by Paradox, and Let the Streets Run Red is about 2 days away from being sent to them. So yeah, there's a lot of movement on V5. Cults of the Blood Gods as well is at the end of that list, but is in development with me. It's just asking for when I have enough time to look at it. Let's see. Chronista says Chronicles of Darkness is the translation of my name. Ah, so in that case, I will just call you Chronicles of Darkness. Just goes to show how poorly I know my Portuguese. Pattern Spider says, are you going to do any more audiobook stuff on the channel? Yes, I absolutely will. If there's an audiobook of ours or fiction from any of our games that you'd like to hear read, then please do tell me. Wait until after the live one's done, otherwise your comments will get lost. Is Lucita still with the Sabat, says Bander1. You'd have to ask Lucita that. I don't know. Actually, I do know, and I'm not telling you. Chronistas says Chroniclers of Darkness. Okay. Mr. L says, oh, hey. Bander1 says Chicago by Night is buy on site. Not shoot on site, it's buy on site. So yes, new releases. We've had several new releases over the last couple of weeks, as always. Changeling the Dreaming 20th Anniversary Edition has had its Player's Guide released in print on demand as of the Wednesday, just gone, yesterday, as of time of recording. And we actually got the Lady Gamer, who is posting in the comments intermittently, was one of the writers of that book. I was overseer, removed from the creation of the text. I can't take any credit for that, but I'm very proud of the way that book has turned out. It handles a lot of interesting subjects sensitively, intelligently, and gives so many options to players of Changeling. You can get that on Drive-Thru-RPG, and it is linked in the description below. It's always linked in the description below. I always prepare these things a little. We've also had another issue of the 100 Devils Night Parade released for Exalted 3rd Edition. The 100 Devils Night Parade is the bestiary that's released piece by piece on the Onyx Path blog. Well, you can find them advertised on there, but you can buy them from Drive-Thru-RPG. I believe the newest one is Anuhle, the Demon Spider and Bat. So I'm a massive fan, as all of you probably know, of bestiaries, of monster manuals. Very little inspires me to run games more than a big collection of horrible creatures. And I'm a big fan of the method by which 100 Devils Night Parade comes out, that you can just buy a monster at a time for a very low cost. We'll be doing something similar with the creature collection for Scarred Lands that we're making, well, Handiwork Games are making in conjunction with us. So do keep an eye out for that. Here's another thing you may have missed. We have started releasing stickers of games like Changeling, Exalted, and such. So if you're the kind of person that likes to dress up your laptop bag, I don't know, what else do you put stickers on these days? Your face, then do check out the blog and check out Redbubble and Onyx Path. You can find stickers related to most of the games we are connected to, and those are stickers that you can buy, and then you can adorn whatever surface you so choose. What else do we have in terms of release? We have a Slurician Vault release, which is big enough, I think, to announce as almost an official release, almost official. And it's Travis Legg's A Mishap of Ill Omens. And it's the first section of a mega campaign for Scarred Lands for D&D 5th edition. This one is not to be slept on. I'm a massive fan of everything from the Shackled City, the very first adventure path, I guess, for that was D&D 3.5, and then they released several more. Age of Worms, I think. Pathfinder started doing their own thing. D&D started doing their own thing, and of course, these kinds of adventure paths are very common these days. We've just started one. Travis has just started one for Scarred Lands, and the first issue, the first book of it, is A Mishap of Ill Omens. Do check it out, because if you're looking for an entryway into Scarred Lands and a new D&D game with a setting you may be unfamiliar with, it's a wonderful adventure to start with. So let's see what other comments we're getting. Let's see. Paladin Demo says, I'll have to look at the Changeling, the Dreaming Player's Guide, and the Lady Gamer agrees with him. Mr. L says, have you played Ascension, the end game book? No, I never played the Ascension Time of Judgment book for Mage of the Ascension, but I did own it. Bounder 1, are we going to see more info on other governments or military hunter groups for Hunter New World of Darkness? Yeah, there are some new compacts conspiracies in the Chronicles of Darkness. Well, so Hunter the Vigil 2nd edition, which is coming up. Charles Keln says that is correct on 100 Devils. Of course it's correct. Paladin Demo says until we get more slasher undertakings, there will be slashers, of course, in Hunter the Vigil 2nd edition as well, because slashers are the primary antagonist for Hunter. It is the Slasher Chronicle. That's the name of the 2nd edition Chronicle. And if you missed it, the Mummy Chronicle is the Timeless Chronicle, because of the way Mummy the Curse now is going to have you waking up in different eras, not necessarily again in a linear fashion. So that's going to be quite a lot of fun if the last time your mummy was awake was the 21st century and then they wake up in the 15th century. These creatures aren't just dead, they are deathless, they are also timeless. They exist at all points at once, it's just their body only animates in their minds a single time. They may be all animating at the same time. It's a wonderful little invention that we've introduced to Mummy 2nd edition that really seems to have grabbed a lot of attentions. So we hope that goes well. That book is in final drafts. I think it's got about a week before the deadline, so it will enter development in a week. So Mummy is ticking along. And Deviant the Renegades is well on its way as well. So if I was to put money on the next Chronicles of Darkness Kickstarter, I would assume it's Deviant. But I can't say that for certain. It depends on when things get approved. Let's see. Pattern Spider says, you did Lunar character creation during the Lunar's Kickstarter. How about doing one for Aberrant? Now, I don't know whether we'll do a character creation. We probably will. And a breakdown of rules. We have some plans in place for lots of videos that are connected to Aberrant and the Trinity Continuum, so stay tuned. But I think it's safe to say there'll be some kind of character creation, maybe even an actual play related to Aberrant. We might do some shorter videos, and we may start using our Twitch channel for things like that as well, so you can engage with the creators a little more easily. Bounder 1 wants to know if there's any chance of a Hunter Recognition Guide 2.0. I think there is a chance of it. We'll have to see how well Hunter the Vigil does when it's launched on Kickstarter. On to community content briefly. I've already spoken a little about the Slurician Vault. We do actually have more community content from the Slurician Vault other than A Mishap of Ill Omens. We have, let's see, of Ill Portent, I should say. We have Bloodsea Rising by Catherine Evans, which is all about playing pirates in Scarred Lands, and who doesn't love playing pirates, especially off the back of the Pirates of Pugmire Kickstarter, which funded. We were all very happy with that. But some people like their piracy a little more bloody, and Bloodsea Rising on the Slurician Vault is worth checking out. Now, I don't have anything from Canis Minor to promote this time. As far as I'm aware, nothing new has been added to it. So remember, if you even just want to profile a character or 5 and put them up on Canis Minor, I will promote them on this video, on these videos for you, to make more people aware of them. So it's free advertising for you, and your products can be as simple or as complicated as you like. So I now need to draw up my the chat log, the pop-out chat log for me again. There we go. Michelle Masala, who is in the chat, as well as the Lady Gamer, both contributed to Mummy the Curse Second Edition. Fantastic writers, did excellent work on that book. Really good. And to be honest, not one writer has let me down on that, so that's always a nice thing. Onyx Path Media. So the Onyx Pathcast has covered a couple of interesting subjects recently. Last week we covered harassment, and that may not sound like the kind of thing that's fun to engage in as a listener, but I think it's one of our more popular podcasts. It's certainly provoked a lot of discussion. People have approached myself, Dixie, and Eddie directly about it. So I recommend checking it out because it's quite insightful. However, if you're more for a light-hearted air, check out this Friday's one, because that's an interview with Steve Kenson regarding Aberrant. Eddie and Dixie do the honors, but I'm there for the intro and the outro. So yeah, do check it out, because we would love to hear your thoughts on the podcast. Do subscribe to it if you can. Do rate it if you can. Recommend it to people. It's a fantastic way of us being able to communicate with the fans as well as our fellow creators. Other Onyx Path Media. I know I often promote these groups, but that's because they frankly deserve it. They do wonderful work. The Occultists Anonymous series of Mage the Awakening games has been superb. And if you're unfamiliar with Mage the Awakening or Occultists Anonymous, please do check it out on YouTube. Just type in Occultists Anonymous. Listen to the first session. It will get you hooked on Mage the Awakening, and that's no small thing. It's not the easiest game to get into, but I think this podcast really does a sterling job of doing so, including with a lot of crossover, well, occasional crossover anyway. We also have, let's see, Caffeinated Conquest, still stumbling through the gauntlet of Spirogos to very funny effect. Devil's Luck Gaming continue with their long Scarred Lands actual play, but watching them play on Twitch is always a joy, because they dress up, they put on voices, they really get into their role play. Roll the Roll podcast as well is one I have to recommend. They recently performed an Aeon Kickstarter, Aeon podcast actual play, which ties in nicely to our Aberrant one, the Kickstarter that's currently going on right now, losing the use of my tongue. And we also have the Story Told podcast, who do a wonderful series of dragon-blooded episodes. So I recommend, again, if you are the kind of person that enjoys listening to people play, not everyone is, do look at the descriptions in the video below. Do check out the media section of the Onyx Path blog. Whenever we do a Monday meeting post, there's a media area where I post about all of the podcasts and YouTube channels that are currently doing actual plays of ours, the ones that tell us anyway. And as a result, it gets them more views, it gets them more listens. So if you listen to any that I don't profile, tell them to get in touch with me and I will promote them. They don't have to pay for it. And if you know people that want to play our games and what is essentially advertising for us, get in touch with me on the Onyx Path forum. I'm the Gentleman Gamer on there. I can probably hook you up with any PDFs you need. All I really need to know is that you've got a channel that you can sustain an actual play, because I don't just send out books for nothing. Let's see, what else do we have here in the questions? Is the Hunt of the Reckoning getting a second edition, or Hunt of the Reckoning getting a V20, I guess a 20th anniversary edition? If it did, it would be in a couple of years, and it would entirely depend on whether Paradox wanted us to. I think the main issue with Hunter getting the 5th edition treatment is because of the street level that Vampire has returned to. Hunter doesn't really fit with that, with superpowered humans. So that's not necessarily going to gel, but a 20th anniversary edition is possible. It really just takes enough people up saying to Paradox that it's worthwhile doing, bearing in mind that it is the previous edition now of a game line that's out for World of Darkness. ETA for Shunned by the Moon, says Jared Levin. The book Shunned by the Moon, Night Horror Shunned by the Moon, should be out next Wednesday for Werewolf the Forsaken. So there you go. There's a news flash for you. And as always, it does seem the Lady Gamer is working on everything, because she worked on that too. Dante Alighieri, I am honoured by your presence, Dante, says, cheers from Brazil. Banda One says, how is Vampire Heritage coming along? That's a very good question. Vampire Heritage is a board game that was on Kickstarter. It's not by Onyx Path, but there I just advertised it. And yeah, it's doing very well. Thank you very much. It's a very fun game. It was great fun to write. And I think I wrote every mission in that, unless there's been more added to it. I've written a bunch of characters for it as well. And yeah, it was one of my first forays into writing board games. I also have a role on the Chapters RPG. Oh, Chapters RPG. It's kind of an RPG board game. And yeah, stay tuned to see what other vampire products I'm able to get my claws into. Cronistas does Travas says, I will talk about Changing the Lost 2nd edition safe game tools to the Brazilian fans of Chronicles of Darkness. That is very much appreciated. Changing the Lost has a wonderful safe gaming section that, because it's a game that deals with some pretty traumatic material at times, and I think having material in there that allows you to play it responsibly, run it responsibly, is a good thing. It can only be a good thing. Paladin Demo says, I did a lore video about the Apis werebulls in response to the rumors of Toreador supposedly turned Minotaur. Oh, well, good for you. I hope people have watched it. Pattern Spider says, Bean Duck's Full Party Exalted stream is probably my favorite actual play show. Get them to get in touch with me. There are certain things I need to clear with them, Pattern Spider, but if you can get them to get in touch with me, then I will happily promote it. Mr. L says, I will swear from now on I will say, does a sterling job. You do that. Paladin Demo, I know it's not a Let's Play, but don't have the equipment to record. It doesn't just have to be Let's Plays and actual plays. We do plenty of video promotion for reviews, overviews, breakdowns of our games as well. Banda One says, novelizations of RPG sessions is a big thing in Japan. Hopefully it gets replicated here. That is new. I have heard of it. But yeah, we'll have to see. We don't have as big a reading culture, it seems, as the Japanese do at this time. It comes in fits and starts, but it is something we're aware of, and yeah, we'll have to see. Jared Levin says, looking forward to Shone by the Moon. Banda One says, another buy on site, Vampire Heritage. Yes. The Lady Gamer, so Dante is asking the Lady Gamer questions about Mummy, so I'll let the Lady Gamer answer those. Banda One, any chance on Vampire the Eternal Struggle getting resurrected? It is already resurrected. Check out the Black Chantry, because they are currently releasing new Vampire the Eternal Struggle decks and have been for a year. Chronistas Das Travas says, today I will teach a class about Mage the Awakening through Discord on YouTube Live. Anything new about Werewolf the Awakening? WTAW. Or any suggestion I could add to my new lesson? I'm guessing you mean Mage the Awakening, and the Signs of Sorcery recently came out. I think if you've not checked that out yet, do so, because that's a book that has received so much praise in such a short space of time. Lady Gamer says, I was not on the mechanics section. Okay. So Dante wants to know about the mechanics of Mummy the Curse and how they were a bit wonky in first edition. By that, I mean, I think it was the only new World of Darkness game, back when it was called that, where you still had variable difficulties. So it would shift from 8 to 7 to 9 and things like that, which Chronicles of Darkness doesn't do, and indeed the rest of the new World of Darkness didn't. We have obviously tried to cut that out as much as possible. It's a new edition. We're not requiring you to know first edition. We would much rather this game was compatible with the other Chronicles of Darkness games as much as possible. So we don't have any wonkiness in second edition, at least as far as I'm concerned. There are still godlike powers that are going to take some mind bending to understand the ramifications of, which there are many, such as hurling meteors down from the sky towards your enemies. But the mechanics of them make sense. Any word on Tome of the Pentacle, says James Hubbard. Tome of the Pentacle is currently, I think, in outline, so it's pretty early days yet. Dante says, has it ever come to your attention the Chronicles of Darkness Day event? The Chronistas have been doing this for 4 years in a row, achieving over 14 cities all across this small country. Well, Brazil isn't that small. In fact, I think it's one of the biggest countries in the world. But I also know an awful lot of it isn't populated. Either way, you never know. You might have some people playing Chronicles of Darkness in the Amazon rainforest. I've heard of it, but I strongly suggest you get in touch with Onyx Path. Email us so that we can promote it. It's a wonderful thing that you organize this Chronicles of Darkness Day, and in other parts of the world you have World of Darkness days of gaming or weekends of gaming, and we can only promote them if people bring them to our attention officially, because sometimes there are things we need to sign simply, and sometimes we just need the full details so we can look into the events. But yeah, we have email, we have contact details on our website, so please do use them. Let's see, what else do we have here? Halmar Norden, who I was just role-playing with about an hour ago, says, I know you from somewhere and I have nothing clever to say, but keep on being great. I was running Cult for Halmar. It's a very good game, not by Onyx Path. Christopher O'Neill says, how is the Chicago content coming along? So as mentioned, Chicago by Night is very close to being completely proofed, and that means it should be relatively close to having PDF released. The Chicago Folios content is with Paradox for approval. Let the Streets Run Red is about a week away from the same thing, and Cult of the Blood Gods is about 2 or 3 weeks away from that. So V5 content is coming along nicely. Let's see. Paladin Demo says, I swore I heard Tome of the Pentacle. No, Tome of the Tentacle. No, there wasn't a Tome of the Tentacle. Chronistas das Travas says, Brazil is not just Amazonian rainforest. I am aware there are many cities in Brazil. My point was the majority of Brazil, I think by landmass, is still rural, still agricultural. Bounder One, I enjoyed Rio and Sao Paulo books by night. Yeah, there's a Sao Paulo by night, I think, on the Storyteller's Vault. Yep, there's still Meteor from the Sky Powers. Mr. L, you mean Cult the reboot of the Swedish game? I do mean Cult the reboot of the Swedish game, Mr. L. Cult Divinity Lost, I have it on my shelves beside me. Very good game, and I would say that because I contributed to it. So, what else do we have to talk about here today? My little students, my little neonates. It's easy to get back into that vampire, that Gentleman's Guide to Vampires thing. So I see you have returned, little neonate. What is it that you come to ask me tonight? Well, I know what you're asking me is, why am I sitting in a room during the day with the curtains wide open? Well, I have invested all my dots in fortitude. Anyway, next question. So yeah, I think that's actually everything. We've covered Kickstarter, we've covered Backerkit, we've covered new releases, we have covered Storyteller's Vault, Slorician Vault, and Canis Minor. We have covered other media as well, and please do check out the Aberrant Kickstarter that's linked below. We have about 5 minutes left where you can ask me questions, and then I'm going out gaming. So yeah, because that's the thing. That's a wonderful, wonderful world of Matthew Dawkins. It's when I'm not writing and running games, I'm playing games or running games. So mostly running games, frankly. So what else do we have here? Lady Gamer resents being called a neonate. Christopher Neal, won't the Streets Run Red? I'm hoping to mod that to hook my players in Omaha into Chicago. That will actually be a really good idea. Let the Streets Run Red has 4 chronicles in. I'll give you a little hint as to what they contain. The first one, Power Prey, is based around street level human horror. You're still vampires, but it's a very human level of horror. And in fact, the Lady Gamer, Clara, wrote that one. Damn it, I'm not even intending this. And so that's based in any city, really. It doesn't have to be in Chicago. It contains some of the characters from Chicago by Night, but they're easily interchangeable. The second one, let's think, what's the second one called? The Dying Fields is a rural horror chronicle set in rural Illinois. So we have actually been able to incorporate folk horror, very Children of the Corn like things. What happens when vampires live outside of the cities? That's a good one. The third one, I'm going to start forgetting the Chronicle names now, is set in the domains of Milwaukee and Indianapolis. They're brought forward to V5, and they're very different domains to Chicago. They don't have your usual setup of Primogen councils. Milwaukee is a police state run by a hardline Camarilla fanatic of Clan Gangrel, and Indianapolis is quite the opposite, run by the Ministry of the Anarch movement. And that was particularly important to me because I wanted to know what an Anarch city would look like if it was the Anarch faith running it. What happens when religion runs a vampire city and that religion is an Anarch-based religion? The fourth one returns you to Gary and all kinds of Anarch and Camarilla activities there. That's probably the most political one, and it will reintroduce you to lots of favorite characters. So we have a street level chronicle, we have a folk horror level chronicle, we have a chronicle about movement and about vampire politics in the sense of police state Camarilla, freeform Anarch, and then we have the deep cuts of Gary, Indiana. So yeah, there we go. That's Let the Streets Run Red. There is a Rio Necropolis for Mummy the Curse First Edition. Let's see. How's your cushy chair on the Pentex board? It seems to be wobbling right now, Paladin Demo. It really depends, I guess, on whether I'm still on the Pentex board of directors come Werewolf 5th edition. And we can only pray that I am. So what else do we have here in the comments in the last few minutes we have remaining? Please get back to the vampire vibe. It's either the Harbinger or the Pentex Malkavian. Which do you prefer, me as a Harbinger or me as a Pentex Malkavian? I won't marry you, Mr. L, but I very much appreciate the proposition. I am so glad that you are excited for Mummy the Curse, Dante. That is wonderful to see. Clara has done wonderful work on the ideas of memory and awakening. Michel has done fantastic work as well on one of his first RPGs, and it's no small thing to have one of your first games be a core book. It's done superb work. Are we going to have more info on the coalition in Aeon, asks Bander1. I very much imagine we will, given time. When is the Mummy Kickstarter coming, says Todd Goldberg? When the book is ready, and it will shortly enter development. That means I need to take probably 2 weeks to a month, maybe a bit longer if there's any big problems. Making sure everything is consistent between the chapters, that there's no obvious errors, that kind of thing. Do I play 7 Days to Die, says James Hubbard. I have not played that. If you add the Trinity core PDF to your Kickstarter pledge, it should come fairly soon after the Kickstarter ends, right? Says Pattern Spider. I believe so, yeah. I can't escape the Lady Gamer. She is everywhere. She's in my head. She's in my ear. Oh my God, she's in the room. She's coming for me right now. Dante says, Matt, my name's Matthew. Could you tell us if there are any plans on creating dice for other Chronicles of Darkness lines? Did you have a good experience with making the Pugmire and changing the Lost dice? Yeah, we'll commission the creation of dice if the price is right and we can find the supplier to do so. That's really all there is to it. There needs to be enough backing to warrant it, because it may seem like dice are cheap to buy or to craft, but it is a brand new expense with a completely different company that needs to ship those dice to the same place from which we are shipping the books. All of this adds up. So it depends on how well games are backed. But I do know that our dice, when we offer them, are always very popular. Will we be publishing adventure modules for your sessions? Depends on the sessions of which game. Gary in Indiana looks like a Sabbat city. It certainly isn't a nice city, but I don't think the Sabbat want anything to do with it. Travis says, good morning. Good morning, Travis, the Scarland Wunderkind. Chris O'Neill says, awesome. Bander1 says, Pentex, you had more black, sarcastic humor. That's because werewolves are flea-infested, close to rodents. So frankly, I'm amazed they didn't just wipe themselves out. Travis says, I slept in today. Did I miss any community content discussions? You did. We've discussed your Scarred Lands work, and you can do the same thing. It seems everyone seems to prefer me as a Pentex board member. So Harold Zettler, I am. Paladin Demo says, speaking of Werewolf 5th, I'll wait for the peak of the Black Fury tribe. They'll be my gauge on what's going on. Okay. Lady Gamer is like herpes. That's her words, not mine. What else do we have here? How do you discover editors, says Mark Ray. They need to apply to us. There is a part on our website, on the onyxpath.com, where editors can apply for work. We pay them for their work. It's as simple as that. They need to come to us. Yeah, sometimes, if we're in desperate need of an editor, we will go to other companies that we know hire editors, or we will speak to our colleagues who work for other companies, that kind of thing. It's all very incestuous in this RPG industry. We all work for each other. But if we need new editors, we need them to apply to us. By the way, will there be a new version of the Book of Spirits, says Alethea. That's quite possible. For Chronicles of Darkness, I assume you mean. But it requires demand. And right now, there hasn't been a great deal of demand for it, as far as I'm aware. Oh, the Lady Gamer is now crabs, which suits me more because of they came from beneath the sea. Obviously, I'm going for the crustacean style of crab rather than the infested pubic region style of crab. That is the first time I have ever, on a news broadcast or indeed any other, said infested pubic region. But I've said it again now, so I blame the Lady Gamer. This is horror. We deal with the world of darkness and the Chronicles of Darkness. Now we're dealing with crabs. Michelle Masala thinks that, well, 5th edition is more timely now than ever, and I would have to agree. Is that a Dawn of the Dead SPI board game above your History of the World board game? Is there? Where's my History of the World board game? I'm going to have to look. I've got a lot of board games. No, that is The Captain is Dead. It's a sci-fi game, very good fun. I will insult the Garou, I will insult the Ratkin, I'll insult every single thing that calls itself a shapeshifter because, frankly, their time has passed. The time of the worm is here. I'm all for Scarred Lands Love. Do we have a start date for the Story Path Nexus, says Travis Legg. Check out the onyxpath.com. Check out the Onyx Path Twitter. We are talking about the Story Path Nexus and creations, fan creations for games such as Trinity, Continuum, Scion, and They Came From Beneath the Sea. So look up the Story Path Nexus. It will be the community content program for Story Path. We need Inferno for Chronicles of Darkness 2nd edition. I agree. I think Inferno is a fantastic supplement. It was for 1st edition New World of Darkness. So make your voice heard. Email Onyx Path. Email Paradox. Tell them these things. The only way we can know what you want is if you get enough people to say they want it. Otherwise, we find that creating source books for games is a little bit of a risky endeavor. The age of RPGs where you could release a new product every single month or every 3 months and know that people would buy them is gone. The culture around tabletop gaming is very much different now to the olden days when I started and everyone at the table owned a copy of the book. So there is a law of diminishing returns. The more source books you produce, especially the more bespoke they become. But that doesn't mean if you can't show a wide interest for a book, we won't make it. We just need that interest to be visible. I have at the Anarch Ministry opening a casino in Council Bluffs that's reaching out to bridge build with Cold War era Camarilla, says Christopher O'Neill. That fits perfectly. Really happy with this. Excellent. I'm glad Let the Streets Run Red is going to scratch that itch. That's it then. There are no other comments other than Banda One disappointedly saying, oh, okay, because it's not a Dawn of the Dead board game. I don't think there ever was a Dawn of the Dead board game. If there had been, I would have bought it because Dawn of the Dead was one of the very first horror movies I really just clamped onto. Loved it and still do. Brilliant movie, even though, as everyone says, it kind of falls off a cliff when the bikers arrive. So, with that said, thank you very, very much for watching, as ever. And I will be back next time for another one of these. And tomorrow, with any luck, with an Aberrant-focused video. So do stay tuned. And thank you very much for watching. Oh, yeah. I need to actually hang up, don't I? It's not voice command. Thank you very much for watching.